what is the goal of money? Is money a technology, a tool? Where does the money we have today come from? Why is there inflation? Who sets the value of the money? Like all these questions, at least for me, emanated also just from realizing, yeah, if all the money I have today is worth the most today, well, I kind of have a problem tomorrow, right?
Okay, welcome back to Immortal Capital. Today, we're joined by Bram Kanstein, an entrepreneur and system thinker who has spent more than 10 years studying why some ideas become durable assets while most fail to compound. Bram is the voice behind Bitcoin for Millennials, a show reaching over 2 million listeners, helping a new generation understand Bitcoin, monetary systems, ownership, and incentive designs through clear first principle thinking. He's also created, failed, and sold many companies. Bram doesn't chase hype, he focuses on clarity, practicality, and building what truly matters. This is Immortal Capital. Let's begin. Hi, Bram. Hi, Bram.
Hey, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So, what object did you bring us today?
Well, that was an easy choice for me. I have this book. Well, this is the Dutch version, but this book is called "The Price of Tomorrow" by
Ah,
Booth, and the subtitle is "Why Deflation is the Key to an Abundant Future." And I think, yeah, well, like you said, I've been studying Bitcoin for over 10 years. I always share like I bought between 100 and 300, and that is not to be cool because I also sold everything at 4,000. So I understood it, but not really. um, and this book really opened and I read that later, the book. Yeah, really opened my eyes more toward the reason of existence for Bitcoin, right? So you mentioned my business and my startup background, and I've always been really focused on like the 0 to 1 phase of ideas to like a viable business. And when you think about like business pitches, right, or ideas, when people have ideas, it's usually about the end product, like the finished end product that is used by people and successful and all these things, right? But that is not what you have tomorrow. Like tomorrow, your job is to figure out what problem do you actually solve and who is having that problem, and are these people aware of the problem, and even if they're aware of the problem, are they looking for a solution? And then you kind of get to the point where you can, or have to, I would say, honestly reflect on if your proposed solution would actually be a solution for the people that have the problem. But therefore, you do need to know who has the problem and how to talk to them, etc. And it's funny that I knew this and I focused on that a lot, but it took me quite a while to actually get to that point myself with regard to Bitcoin, right? So in the beginning, when I discovered it, I really thought, okay, this is an investment. I'm early. I'm gonna be rich, and blah blah blah. The classic stuff. Like I came for the number go up, but over time, and this book was a big catalyst in that. When I really learned why Bitcoin exists, that's basically when I also went back and also all in. But this book really talks about how technological progression and innovation is deflationary in nature, in its core, basically, right? And I think the simplest example that a lot of people might understand is that if you see a picture of like the first hard drive, like computer hard drive, that's like a container that's being loaded into an airplane, right? And the capacity of this container and everything in there was, I don't even know how much, but not more than a gigabyte or 100 megabyte.
uh,
And now this is a 2 terabyte phone for the fraction of a multi-million dollar container that had to be loaded up in a plane, right? And it's stuff like that, or like the calculators in the phone, right? And there's maps in this phone, and it's all free for me to use. And so that is kind of like in the modern day how innovation usually makes sure that more energy or more productivity is compounded in a smaller unit that is more affordable and also more available to more people, right? So that's how people can actually use the new technology, be more productive, create more stuff for more people, and because more people can do that, the price of that stuff also goes down, right? So that's kind of where the abundance comes from. But even back in the day, same thing. If you went from 10 monks that all wrote one book in 1 month, and then you went to the printing press that wrote 10 books, or, well, pressed 10 books in a day, maybe, you could share information more widely, etc. And same going for, from horses to steam engine to car, etc. So that's kind of what I knew ish. But that when I read this book, it really became clear to me that we should actually have way more abundance than what we have now. And kind of like the issue that Booth points out is that if you measure a deflationary technological force with a money that constantly needs to be inflated, there's instantly a battle, because how do you price um, deflationary productivity forces in an inflationary money, of which by definition, anything that is of which the price is calculated or labeled with that money, the numbers should go up, whereas with technological deflation, the numbers should actually go down eventually to free. And so I think this book was just a really big pivotal thing I read that really opened my eyes to more like the economic and financial dimensions of Bitcoin, and basically, yeah, the reason of existence.
I'm happy you wrote this book because this is like my top two book on my Bitcoin journey, if you want,
Oh, nice.
because
Yeah.
like you, I bought in the hundreds, and then I didn't sell them at 4,000, but I was like, okay, let my gains run. It was just like numbers go up. I initially saw it as a unit of account,
Hmm.
and so I'm French, Lebanese, and I was doing like back and forth traveling between Paris and Beirut. And when every time I traveled, I had to exchange my euros to dollars, and then from dollars to Lebanese pounds. And I was like, if there was one unit of account and one currency
Yeah.
that we can use everywhere, so we don't have to go through these predatory intermediaries, because they charge you like rates like really the most ridiculous picture that you can see on this industry is the conversion forex boards of these forex companies in the airport. They charge you spreads that are wider than anything you can see in the world. Anyway, so I saw it as a unit of account. Like, how cool if you have like one unit of account for everyone, and we agree to using it.
Yeah.
But it's the Bitcoin standard that convinced me that it can be used as money, as a government money. Like we don't need fiat. We can build fiat on top of Bitcoin instead of
Hmm.
having it on top of nothing. And the price of tomorrow, your book is the one that explained to me why. Like a very simple question that I ask often to everybody I meet, like, why is there inflation? You know,
Yeah.
and in most media, economics, everything you've been taught is like, yeah, supply and demand, and prices go up. But in reality, prices should go down. And even like the price of apple is of fruit of food is like higher than before. Like, although we're
Yeah.
producing with the same trees more apples, so why is it down? Like, everything is automated, everything, and apple prices are going up.
Yeah.
And when you start asking this question around, like, very few people know the answer to this
Yeah.
question.
Well, I absolutely love that. I think a few things, when I don't know if you know these. these future predictions from people in like the 1910s and 20s, where they thought about flying cars and stuff like that, right? Yeah, so in that age there was a harder money, and that was actually their idea of where the future could go. And I always think about it in a sense that for them, it was logical to think about, 80 to 100 years in the future within the constraints of the money they had in that way. So, looking at the tech we have now, everything they said would be possible should be possible, but there are no flying cars, right? That's kind of like the joke, like we were promised flying cars. But the people that predicted that or looked at the future like that, they had a totally different money, basically. And so that's I always find that an interesting signal that what people found logical and rational for the future to be, we are not there, right? And similar to what you're saying, I use the Apple example all the time, right? Does an apple need more energy from the sun to grow on a tree, than 50 or 60 years ago? It's nonsense, right? That's not. It should, it's the same, and we arguably became better with our machinery to harvest, have a higher yield per square meter or whatever, however that's
Yeah.
calculated for apples, right? But the same also for bread. Like I always ask, like why is bread not free? Why is it a joke when you say like, well, when my parents went to the grocery store in the 1960s, right, the bread was 25 cents in whatever currency, right? But now a bread is like $5 or €5, and nutritionally it's probably worse than
Yeah.
50 or 60 years ago, right? So when I have this conversation, I usually ask people, okay, would you agree that over time, because there's technological innovation, we become better at everything, right? Like I just said, we put more energy in a smaller unit and therefore we are more productive. Everyone says yes, because that's logical, right?
Mm.
And then I ask, like, okay, well, do you think we're better at making bread today than 60 years ago, right? Or harvesting apples? And everyone says, yes, yes, of course. And then I say, okay, then why is it a joke that like 60 years ago it was 25 cents? Let's stay with dollars, right? It was 25 cents and now a bread is like $4 or $5. Is the bread better? Is it more scarce? Is it like exclusive bread? Like what do you think? Or and do you think we've become better at making bread? And like you said, yeah. So why is there this dichotomy? Why do you need more units of the same money to pay for a product that supposedly conceptually should be better quality wise and also way more abundant and way more available? Does that make sense? Like I usually go there because that always gives people an error where they're like, yeah, that doesn't really make sense. Like, why would that be? And then people say like, well, inflation or what, all the stupid arguments. But the point is, why isn't the bread free? Is my thing. Like, why? How is it possible that you were at 25 cents and now you need more dollar units for something that is nutritionally worse? That feels like you're going back in time. And you're
Yeah.
going back in time even before the bread was 25 cents, where the bread was new, right? Anything new that comes onto the market is in a small quantity and is expensive, and over time
Mm.
it goes down. So it's you don't even have to really dive deep into money or Bitcoin to even have people get to a point where they're wondering like, yeah, that's kind of that's kind of weird. Why would that be?
So I guess that's what led you to focus on education, because that's what you do on building your channel and broadcasting. So can you tell me a little bit, like, how did you end up creating Bitcoin for Millennials?
So yeah, like I said, I sold all the Bitcoin at 4,000, and I slowly got back in. I got distracted with all the crypto stuff, and eventually I uh, I just realized Bitcoin is the only thing to pay attention to. And this was in a period. Well, that was quite a few years ago, but like two and a half years ago, I really had this period where I was focusing on that for myself and just realizing, okay, I don't think there's going to be a pension for me. I don't think there's going to be, social benefits for me. Like, um, I'm I'm still wondering if there are any social benefits for my mother, for example, who's about to retire. I mean, when you look at France, the working people are paying for the benefits
Mm.
of the retired people, right? So if you are there already, um, yeah, what does that future look like for people that are, mid 30s, still have to work for, let's say, 25, 30, 35 years. Well, in France, not so long, right? But I mean, there's just a general discussion around that, like, okay, how do you look at your future? And then, like, for my generation, so millennials and even younger, what does that look like? Like, how can you move towards a future where, um it's going to be incredibly hard to plan for whatever you want to do, right? And I even heard that, people my age aren't having children because they think they cannot afford it, or the world looks like shit, and they are super negative about the future, etc. So I don't know, it was just this period where I was kind of like seeing that, hearing that, and then I had some calls like this with like Bitcoiners and I knew from the internet, and we had like really interesting discussions. And I had a few times where I just realized, maybe it would have been interesting to record this and just share with people. So I had that a few times, and then in the same time period, I had also a few conversations with friends. Like, one of my friends, he worked on a company for like 7 years. He sold it. He doesn't have to work again, right? He didn't have any Bitcoin, and I asked him, like, okay, what? I didn't really want to talk about Bitcoin, but I just wanted to talk about money, right? Like, okay, you hustled, someone gave you a lot of money, now you put the money in the bank, now what, right? So I gave him the
Mm.
example, like, okay, if you call the bank today and you say, like, I want 200,000 euros from my account, what do you think happens? And keep in mind, I love this guy, he's super intelligent, right? It's super entrepreneurial. And he was like, yeah, I don't know, maybe they don't really have it and they need to get it, and but maybe a few days, and then I'll get it, right? And I said, okay, but what I do you want to know what I think happens? He's like, yeah. I said, well, I think you're gonna have a random person on the phone who just thinks you're, customer XYZ number in the database when you give your name, right? And then you say, well, I want 200,000 euros. And she's going to be like, he's going to be like, oh, that is more than 10,000, which is on my list here. So what are you going to use it for? And
Mm.
XYZ. And he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. And, I'm annoyed by the fact that this is how it works. And he was just looking at me like, yeah, well, I don't know, whatever. And I'm going to answer a question. And then I said, dude, you do understand that what you think is yours is not yours, right? Like, you put it in the bank, you have signed a contract, you basically lended all your money to the bank, and it's now an IOU for you, right? The number you see in your bank account is just an IOU. And I, by the way, I didn't know this before, but I learned this when I actually worked at a bank, and I had a colleague tell me, "Did you know the money in the bank is not yours?" And he he explained it to me. Um, but he looked at me and he was like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's annoying. And then I said, well, it's interesting because I feel like I'm wound up about the fact that you don't own what you think you own, but you don't really seem to think this is an issue, right? And he's like, yeah, yeah, no. So we didn't really talk about Bitcoin because I realized, well, if he doesn't understand that what he thinks is his property is by definition legally defined not his property anymore, we have a long way to go before he would even get that Bitcoin is something that you can actually truly own, which can function as a financial asset that you can use as a medium of exchange, and all these things, right? And so it was kind of like having those types of conversations, plus like the positive Bitcoin conversations, and
Mm.
then hearing an older gentleman, Bob Burnett, on a Bitcoin podcast say, "Well, if you think, this Bitcoin thing is going to be something you're going to follow for your entire life," and then I realized, yeah, this is actually true. Like, I want to see how this plays out, right? I realized that fiat money is not working for my future or my children's future, so I decided to do the work and reflect and investigate, and then consciously pick this other money. And he said, well, if you're going to do that, I think, Bitcoin is the most interesting topic you can spend your time on. And that's when I was like, yeah, I should do that. And then, yeah, I just naturally came to a podcast. I don't know, I just wanted to try it out. I never did a podcast, just to learn everything myself, but then also to realize, okay, who am I going to focus on? And that's basically just my millennial peers that don't even understand what money is, basically, right? So I can tell them about Bitcoin, but again, if they don't even understand their current problem today, which is already, I think, a hard thing to understand, right? Understanding that you are not an actor in this financial system, you are a subject. There's other people that determine the value of the reward that you spend your time and energy for, right? And therefore, when that is diluted, your time and energy is being diluted, which makes you which kind of forces you to be a consumer instead of a builder. What does that mean, psychologically, spiritually, all these things? And so, yeah, that's when I decided, okay, I think I need to focus on my generational peers, because I do think we are also really primed to understand Bitcoin, this whole connection between the physical world and the digital world, like our whole transition through in our youth through that, right? From analog to digital. I think we are primed to understand that something that is digital should be infinitely copyable. And therefore, if you understand that Bitcoin is an absolutely scarce digital unit, that is actually very, very profound. Um, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up doing this podcast, Bitcoin for Millennials. Now, just over 220 episodes, just over 2 years, and yeah, I'm just really, really enjoying it. I think I'm learning every day when I talk to people about Bitcoin. I have an opportunity to structure my own thoughts around it, and yeah, it's just also very rewarding to reach apparently a lot of people that resonate with how I talk about it. And yeah, it's just really, really awesome to contribute to that and
You
see that
seem
grow.
to talk about it with a lot of passion. I'm curious to know, like you mentioned the millennial audience and your belief that they are very well positioned to understand like a new technology because they have seen the shift from analog to digital. But do you see it in a sense? Do you have like any inputs or any return of experience like from this audience that on which you're focusing on?
Yeah, so when I look at the analytics, I think about 43-ish% of all the listeners, they fall into the millennial age range. So I'm definitely reaching them, but I'm also reaching a lot of boomers actually that also comment a lot on YouTube because they have millennial children and they always share like, oh, I'm
Mm,
so much into Bitcoin. I want my children to understand this. So I'm sending them your podcast and stuff like that. So it's just really fun to see that um yeah, I am reaching them. And it's also, in the beginning I thought, okay, I need to niche down because yeah, just having a niche is always good. And I thought, okay, the millennial niche is also big enough, right? That's like two
yeah.
billion people, so that's enough. But like the more I talked about it, the clearer it became to me that what they are missing again, I think, is the fact that they have this certain life path or idea of picture of life that our parents and grandparents sold to us, not in a bad way, but just like, okay, this is how your life goes. And now that we are in this age range where we make big decisions, whether it's relationship or building a family or where to settle down and get a home or all these things, um, the statistics are against us, right? There's still a lot of people that cannot afford a home. There's a lot of people that aren't getting children and stuff like that. So we are clashing with this idea or perception of how it should be with the actual real world. And personally, for me, I think knowing all of that and adopting Bitcoin actually gave me a lot of hope for the future. Like I think without Bitcoin, knowing all of this, I think I would be quite depressed, because I think the essence of it is that no matter how hard you work or try to, level up your productivity or whatever, if you're not outworking the debasement of the reward you're getting,
Mm.
then you're on an endless treadmill, basically. So that I think is maybe a bit more the explanatory part of just realizing you have a problem, right? Like, the future you think is there as a millennial is just not there. That has become my conclusion. And uh, I don't think that's a positive message, but with Bitcoin, I think, at least for
There
me,
is
it's a
hope.
positive message, and that
Uh,
is what I'm trying to share. Like, okay, it's not that dark. Well, it is kind of dark, right? Because it's not a nice
there is a
realization
light
to
at the
realize.
end of the tunnel.
Huh? Yeah, there is a light, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are very nihilistic or very negative about the future and don't have a lot of hope. I am incredibly positive about the future. I have a lot of hope for the future. I'm looking forward to the future, and I also see a bright future for my children. And the reason is Bitcoin, and that is kind of what I'm trying to
Mm.
share. Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned the price of tomorrow in your intro. What about the guests that you had on your show? Is there a guest that left a deep mark on your thinking, or something a guest said that changed how you look at Bitcoin? Like, what was the like your top
Mm.
two, three
I think,
moments?
well, yeah, there's a few things, but I think one thing that, there was one guest called Seb Bunny. He also has a book. I want to say the correct book. Wait, let me look. The book is amazing. The Hidden Cost of Money. It's called.
Mm,
How It's called The Hidden Cost of Money: How Financial Forces Shape Our Lives and the World Around Us. And at one point, he said, think about this. All the money you have today is worth the most today.
mm,
And I thought that was so profound, because what is behind that, right? Okay, so if if it's worth the most today, and tomorrow it's already worth a tiny bit less, right? You cannot really comprehend, because it's tiny, but over time, it's more about the trend, right?
mm,
The debasement trend or the loss of your purchasing power. So if all the money you have today is worth the most today, what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do a year from now, right? And so what I just mentioned about, like, moving somewhere or building a family or building a home or starting a venture or doing something super creative or big or out there or whatever, right? All the things that we actually appreciate from people that came before us, right? Like, I don't know, Notre Dame or the Eiffel Tower or Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, or any art thing or whatever. Like, if you want to do something that is risky, or for example, very artistic or cultural or whatever, like anything that is big and takes a lot of time, basically goes out of the window when you realize that all your money is worth the most today. Does that make
mm.
sense, right? Like, so if you start a project that maybe takes 5 years, how are you even going to plan or
Too
or
long.
budget for this thing, right? And my insight from it is, well, if your money is worth the most, if all the money you have today is worth the most today, you are incentivized to spend it tomorrow. So you are incentivized to consume, because you'd rather buy stuff you don't need to have, the kind of idea that you change the money for something that is valuable, rather than actually taking risk or creating time and space to build something, whatever, or create something, whatever you want. But creating that time and space by ways of having, pooled a certain amount of money, is becoming increasingly harder and harder. And so when he said that, I don't know, I just realized that this is what for me is also kind of like the the spiritual crime of fiat money. If you cannot explore in your life or try out stuff and take risks and fail and then learn and then do it again, like how I think it should go for everyone, then yeah, you're also not really living the opportunity that you've gotten just by being alive, basically. And the crazy part about that is that it's other people that are controlling this value of the money, right? It's other people that are
This
no better
value
than,
depreciation, yeah.
yeah, so they are not better than you, right? Why would they be able, or why should they be able to assert control over how basically your time and energy are being valued over time, right? So if I work today and spend my finite time and energy, which is my productivity, and I get rewarded in a reward that other people know better than me can create infinitely, that's the dumbest thing that I could do today. And just realizing that, I think, is a big step for anyone to kind of wake up to the question, okay, well, what is money then? Right? What is the goal of money? Is money a technology, a tool? Where does the money we have today come from? Why is there inflation? Who sets the value of the money? Like all these questions, at least for me, emanated also just from realizing, yeah, if all the money I have today is worth the most today, well, I kind of have a problem tomorrow, right? And another thing that Seb said, everything is downstream from the money, right? But the full sentence, I think, is everything is downstream from the quality of the money. So if I'm incentivized to be a consumer and not a builder, right, I'm also incentivized to follow other people versus think for myself. That's my incentive. And so if any value exchange in the world, half of that exchange is money, what we use as money, the reward. Well, if that reward is corrupted and the person spending the reward in a value exchange has therefore a corrupted incentive,
Mm.
what does that mean? And what does it mean if the person who's receiving it also has a corrupted incentive, right? Because if they need to acquire the most money units that they can acquire today so they can spend it tomorrow before it's worth less, are they actually providing value, right? And then, I think once you get there, you go into this whole rabbit hole of value, quality, beauty, energy, and all these related topics, like we talked about, right? The bread 60 years ago was cheaper and nutritionally better, and today's bread is more expensive and nutritionally worse. And
Worse,
that
yeah.
is not because people hate making bread today. It's just because their incentives changed, because everything they price value in went down in value. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, Saifuddin has a book about it, like Fiat Food, where he explains the whole distortion fiat money gives to the price of bread, but also to the quality, how like
Yeah,
it
but it's with
impacts the
everything.
quality. Yeah,
It's with everything, right? I mean, I live in a house that is from 1902, and I have amazing doors and an amazing stairwell where there
yeah.
was a carpenter who thought, I'm gonna make this super nice. I'm gonna put all my skill in here and make this like turned wooden, rail on the stairs, and the doors are nice. They have like a frame and whatnot. And like a modern door is just, and my door is a hardwood door, right? And like modern doors are just compressed wood plates and whatever. And it's in everything. It's in the beauty of the buildings or the fountains or whatever. Like you see it everywhere.
When we talk about this, it's like we're talking about uh, the Earth is flat or not. Like people look at us as the crazy ones. Like although it's like obvious questions and obvious matters, and the questions are have no answer, but they still like look at the Bitcoin community in general as a bunch of wackos, like wanting to change the systems that is working very well for them or according to them. I have a question for you. Since you have been following Bitcoin, what was the most surprising FUD you have seen on Bitcoin?
Well, I think it's the CIA made Bitcoin, right, or something like that. I think what a lot of people don't realize, and this is in line with the thought of like, what if all the governments in the world coordinate to shut down the internet, right? Or what if there's an EMP bomb or a solar, whatever. Like, I call these end of the road FUD arguments, right?
Mm,
And whenever someone says it, I say like, well, if I can reply to this in a coherent, explanatory way, will you finally adopt Bitcoin, right? Because having like the ultimate argument as to why it sucks or whatever, dismantled, I think people should pay attention. But CIA made Bitcoin. I think what people fail to realize, and like I said, it's connected to these other things, is that this is an open source protocol. It's just a set of rules for a monetary network, and you can adopt it or not. That is basically it. And when you adopt it in order to keep its integrity high, you are also incentivized to contribute to the hash rate, as in mining, and you're incentivized to run a node to have a copy of the ledger.
mm.
And that's basically it, right? So I can start, you know, bit Bramcoin.
Yeah, the CIA
Um,
has no incentive to create an open protocol that everybody can use. They don't have like a backdoor or
Well,
and
and
this.
it goes against all their strategic,
Yeah,
objectives also. So yeah, so if it's an open source computer protocol now, especially now, no one, no one can abuse this. This has been audited for years. So if the CIA made it, I would say it great, but it's irrelevant
yeah. It's
because
like the
they
CIA, I think, made the GPS. So fine, we're all using it.
the
Like
internet comes from DARPA. Like
exactly.
it's just basic FUD to scare people away that I think are close to seeing Bitcoin, right? It's people that understand, okay, there is a certain level of elite-ish people that apparently control the majority of people by way of, you know, media and like all these things. And that is not nice to realize, right? But it's also not new. Like, I don't know, 200 years ago, there was also people that controlled other people. It's always the same, right? But I think what people need to realize is that if you adopt a different money that is neutral, global, decentralized, right? No one can control it. If you switch from a fiat money system that fuels all the things that you don't like, elitist people, psyops, whatever you think is working against you, if you just take your money and you exchange it for another money that no one can control, that is basically the
Yeah,
revolution. That's the
yeah.
peaceful revolution. But it sounds so stupidly simple that a lot of people don't understand that that's the only thing you need to do. Does that make sense,
So
right?
some of
So
the times they just wanna complain without adopting a
yeah,
solution that is
exactly,
so
exactly.
simple, like you say.
Yeah, and then it's just and this is also what Bitcoin, I think, kind of invites people to, like literally what you said. I call that walk and no talk, right?
Mhm.
So you see the problems, you see it's messed up, you see there are other people no better than you that are controlling the value of your time and energy. And then what do? You go out on the street and protest and hope there's another person that's going to fix it all, right? No, like that is not what we should do. We should abandon the money that is fueling what these people what we allow these people to do. That's basically it, right? And so even when the CIA made Bitcoin, like I said, I think strategically, this idea was released on a random internet forum. You cannot predict how this would organically be adopted and everything. And also this goes against everything that the CIA would be for. So it wouldn't, yeah, in my opinion, it wouldn't really be a strategic smart thing. But the point is, it's an open source computer protocol, right? It's a protocol like the rules of chess are a protocol, right? The rules
Mm.
of chess are the same everywhere. If we meet and I want to play chess, but I changed a rule because I like that, yeah, and you say that's not chess, we're not going to play. Does that make sense, right? So if I'm going to go to a park and I say, well, I play chess, but the Bram way, no one is going to play with me. So there's this consensus that there's a set of rules that is what makes up chess, right? Same for there's a set of rules for spelling and grammar that make up the English language or the French language. And so how can you ban a set of rules, right?
Mhm.
You cannot ban a language, you cannot ban chess, you cannot ban math. And this is the same category as where people should put Bitcoin in, because it is just a set of rules for an open, decentralized, global monetary network with a unit that has absolute scarcity. And that's it. So, in essence, it's quite boring, which is good, I'd say. But the thing it's solving, that it's battling against, I think, is what makes it so hard for people to understand. We just think the money we have today is the best we could have ever come up with organically, all together, kumbaya, and this is what we ended up with. But the fact that that is not the case, I think, is actually what is holding a lot of people back to even go further in even discovering what even their options are, of which I think one is Bitcoin, right? But it is a long journey, because if you are not able to take that first step, right, that first fork in the road where you realize there's other people no better than you that influence what you share your finite time and energy for, if you're okay with that, then that is okay. Whatever you want, right? Anyone can choose. But I do think that's probably a harder life than accepting the fact that this is the case, and you apparently have to start thinking for yourself and take responsibility and not outsource your money to other people.
Mm, mm. Okay, let's end with Bitcoin in 2026. 2025 has been like quite a lot of excitement at the beginning, and then this excitement faded, and we've been like going within a range of 80 to 100K since months now. Um, what's your prediction? Not necessarily in terms of price, but in terms of events or forecasts or adoption or views for 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, I am not really a price guy in general.
Hmm.
I'm just my personal thesis is just extremely fundamental and logical, I think. So we are all being forced to use a money that loses its value over time on purpose, which is something that I think is mathematically assured, and it's only accelerating, right? It's something you
Hmm.
see in the US, it's something you see in Europe. So there is a certain path for a fiat money, and the ending is not nice. And
Hmm.
it's something we've seen in history. So all fiat monies eventually die, and there's either a debt jubilee or a war, where basically the people that are not in control will suffer from. And so that is my fundamental thesis: is that money is going that way, so I need to move to another money, which for me is Bitcoin. I also don't see the price of Bitcoin as the price. I think it's an exchange rate.
Mm.
So if you think about it, a few years ago you needed
It's
3,000.
not a price of adoption or a level of adoption. It's more like
Yeah, well, no, I
a
mean
level
more
of.
like I would say it's an exchange rate, and it's one money for another. But the price you see, right, like whatever the number is today, if you call it a price or an exchange rate, I think that's a proxy for adoption, for understanding. So that understanding goes up and down, right? There's still people that trade Bitcoin or use leverage and stuff like that, but there's also about 55 to 60% of people that have not moved their Bitcoin in 2 or more years. So there are a lot of people that already understand what this is, and I think this group will slowly grow. But this is a one by one conversion,
Mm.
basically, right? Like um, I cannot understand Bitcoin for another person. Like you have to figure it out yourself. You have to be annoyed by the fact that there's other people that control, your money and stuff like that. So I think that's a slow. It's a slow-ish adoption rate, but at the same time, the problems with fiat money are becoming more and more clear, I would say. And I think that will accelerate this year. There's this whole push for CBDC, and maybe even war in Europe and whatever. I think we are almost at a turning point where a lot more people will be wondering, you know why is all this money that my government is spending not going towards me and my family or my
Mm.
village or my region? Why is it going to things that um
And why the banks are putting more and more hurdles for me to use my money? Like
also stuff like that, right? And so that is interesting. That's a good point, I
compliance
think.
has been like to the roof. You have to KYC every month. You have to send
Yeah,
updated bills there,
yeah.
updated ID. Your
It's
identity
to
now
catch the
is
criminals.
everywhere.
It's to catch the criminals.
Yeah.
See, but I think more and more people will wake up to the fact that they are conformed, or they're forced, involuntarily forced, to follow a certain way, where along the way it's not been made clear as to why. Does that make sense, right? Like I think all the arguments that are made are so superficial and so flawed, logically, because there aren't any good arguments to be made for
They are
example,
mainly fear-based, like every
yeah, or
argument
you're a
I have
good
seen.
yeah, or you're a good person, you're helping catch criminals or whatever. Well,
Uh,
KYC and stuff like that didn't exist in the golden age, didn't exist
uh,
when people roamed the world, and what, like,
but
most
even
of the
it's so
world's.
much hurdles on billions of people for catching or not even catching because they have
Attempting.
their
Yeah, yeah,
trying to catch like such a small amount of other people.
yeah, yeah. And
I
I've never
give
really
this example every time I have this discussion is that the optimal speed limit for any city in the world, like a car speed limit, is zero. Because at zero, you have zero accidents. And that's
yeah,
what you have seen like regulation, 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 adding on lower speed limits, double speed limits. And every year congratulating themselves about, like, wow, we have reduced the number of deaths in the city, but at the end, you reduced every single activity in the city.
yeah,
And in finance, the whole network of exchanging value through the financial intermediaries has been like clogged completely by all this silly regulation that is supposed to catch that is being paid by the good guys, supposed to catch a very small amount of bad guys, when there are so many other ways these bad guys are can operate and are operating.
well, it's also a fallacy that there won't be any traffic accidents, or there won't be any criminals, or there won't be any people that would take an opportunity to exploit whatever loophole, etc., they come across with, right? So my question to people that are very like propose like government intervention and more legal stuff and whatever, it's like, when does it stop?
Mm.
What do you have to see, right? What receipt? I always say, like, where are the receipts, right? Like, I would love to know where the cost benefit is of
Yeah,
KYC and stuff like that, right? Like, I've never seen it. And well, obviously they don't
I have
publish it
seen one
because
data that is like amazing. It's like published by the UN. Is that the number of transaction of illegal transaction caught by all these monetary supervisory measures they have put is like 0.02% of the criminal activity that is going on through the tradition. It's like we have hired like so many compliance officers put on those,
yeah.
like it doesn't cover the amount of money that is being caught, like why are we doing it?
Yeah, and the crazy part is, if you have a business and you spend your money like that, you're gonna die,
Yeah.
right? Like, your business would die if you just spend
Yeah,
all
I
your
run
money
an
in
asset
ineffective
management
ways.
company, and I can tell you every month there is like this new rule, this new stuff, this new layer.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's just crazy.
But there's an end to that. There is an end
Yeah.
where there is a split, I would say, between people that will just never wake up to this and just think like, oh yeah, it's necessary because, whatever. And there's going to be other people that are going to be no, this is done now, right? Because there's just no benefit to it. And if there's a benefit, it should be abundantly clear, right? It shouldn't be constructed in vague words and moral high ground, whatever arguments. No, it should just be like, okay, well, the citizens paid X and it gave us Y, and if Y isn't higher than X, then
Mm,
you just shouldn't do that. And it's crazy that that's so basic.
mm.
But yet here we are.
Okay, I have to wrap it up. Unfortunately, it was a very good discussion. Brian, thank you for sharing your time, your insights, and your stories with us today. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining this episode of Immortal Capital. If this conversation gave you a new way to think about value, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with someone who would appreciate it. And remember, money is not just numbers. Thank you, Ram. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.